Majak. Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! I am so honored to be here. I have never met a more courageous people. America and the Zionist entity fears Yemen more than anyone else, because the people of Yemen fear nobody but God. I understand that here today, it is Quds Day, and I could think of nowhere else I would rather be than with the free people of Yemen. As the United States drops bombs on the people of Yemen and Gaza, we know that the U.S. and the Zionist entity is waging a war against God. And we know that anyone who wages a war against God will never be successful. Thank you for having me here, and inshallah one day we will meet in a free Palestine.
It's official. Reality broke somewhere along the way, and nobody bothered to tell us. In a timeline that feels like a parody written by someone who binge-watched too much political satire, Jackson Hinkle, yes, that Jackson Hinkle, the chill surfer turned political commentator from San Clemente, California, found himself not just posting spicy takes from his living room, but standing center stage in Sana'a, Yemen, addressing tens of thousands of heavily armed Houthis. And no, this isn't some Netflix pitch. This actually happened. Imagine waking up one morning, checking your DMs, and instead of the usual collab, bro, messages from fellow streamers, you find an invite from the actual Yemen army. Did this actually happen? Who knows? But it's funnier if it did. Welcome to Jackson Hinkle's Wild New Normal. On March 28th, 2025, donning a Palestinian keffiyeh, because how else do you accessorize for an international rebel rally, Hinkle passionately addressed a massive crowd on International Quds Day, championing Yemen's right to resist Saudi and American aggression. You can't script this. Hollywood wishes it had this kind of plot twist. For anyone confused, because let's be real, we all are. Here's a quick rewind. Jackson Hinkle used to talk politics online, railing against wars, meddling governments, and pretty much anything resembling imperialism. Fast forward to 2024, when Hinkle found himself speaking at the United Nations in a session sponsored by Russia, publicly condemning Ukraine and applauding Russia's actions in eastern Ukraine. By 2025, he's touring through the axis of resistance, interviewing senior Hamas leaders Bassem Naim and Osama Hamdan in Doha, mourning Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah in Beirut, and finally topping it off in Yemen, effectively giving the middle finger to traditional American foreign policy. Is he brave? Absolutely. He's doing the geopolitical equivalent of standing up in class and yelling truths we were all thinking but didn't have the guts to say. Let's be honest, this stunt must have the CIA scratching their heads, wondering how some California kid ended up front and center at their least favorite Middle Eastern block party. And speaking of parties, watching Yemenis cheering on an American dude at an anti-US rally is peak 2025 absurdity.
I was in Washington, D.C. a few months ago, and I was meeting with the energy policy advisor for Senator Kamala Harris from California. We were discussing, energy policy, environmental policy, and things of that nature.
Yemen invited a guy who used to surf at Trestles Beach to become their honorary mascot in their struggle against the Great Satan. This is like the real-life version of Nicholas Brody from Homeland suddenly popping up in the Middle East. Except it's even weirder because it's real. If this isn't proof we're living in a simulation programmed by someone with a twisted sense of humor, nothing is. Now, Yemen itself is already quite a punchline. Yemeni weddings last longer than most Yemeni governments. Their national pastime is arguing over who has less running water. Seriously, they built skyscrapers from mud just to flex poverty on a whole new level. And let's not forget their family trees, which look more like family vines. Everyone's related twice. Yemeni women often cover their faces mostly to avoid awkward conversations with cousins proposing marriage. In Yemen, fashion just means choosing between beige, slightly darker beige, and the daring, scandalous tan. They say Yemeni men think cologne can mask the scent of 3 weeks of skipped showers. They're wrong. If Jackson isn't secretly an agent, and let's be real, he'd make the most laid-back double agent ever, his journey shows precisely how corrupt, disastrous American foreign policy can push ordinary citizens to the opposite end of the spectrum. Let's get one thing straight. The Houthis aren't exactly your friendly neighborhood democracy enthusiasts. They're a complicated blend of militia, government, and proxy warriors. But labeling them outright terrorists feels about as accurate as calling America or Israel peace-loving hippies. It's all sand and hypocrisy out there. Speaking of sand, leave it to white guys to see Lawrence of Arabia once and suddenly think they've got a calling. But jokes aside, Hinkle isn't exactly rallying these sand warriors to invade California. Thank God traffic on the 405 is bad enough. He's just pointing out the obvious. America's freedom-loving interventions abroad have historically turned into disaster movies nobody ordered, but we all end up paying for. For clarity, I remain a supporter of Jackson. Seeing him transition from commentator to international activist is both impressive and surreal. He's not betraying America. He's shouting from the rooftops that our government can't be trusted to decide who our enemies should be. Honestly, at this rate, next month, we'll probably see Mr. Beast hosting charity fundraisers for Hezbollah, because apparently anything goes in 2025. Got thoughts? Drop them below, because clearly reality is now crowdsourced. What Americans really need to grasp from this surreal situation is that there isn't a single cause today capable of uniting us as passionately as they're united in places like Yemen. You might think Americans could rally around healthcare like this. Wrong. Maybe you'd think we'd unite if the internet shut down nationwide, but we just argue endlessly about which Jewish billionaire caused it, or how about an asteroid heading towards Earth. Nope, half the country would claim it's fake news created by the other half. Even discovering immortality wouldn't unite us. We'd immediately spiral into an all-out war over who gets eternal youth and who gets volunteered as live organ donors for billionaire immortality treatments. We'd probably televise it as reality entertainment sponsored by pharmaceutical companies. You'd also think that being forcibly locked inside our homes, muzzling our kids with masks, enduring remote learning disasters, and being threatened with job losses over vaccine mandates might have inspired some unified rebellion. Nope. We just fought about MAGA hats, pronouns, and toilet paper shortages instead. Say what you will about those desert-dwelling, sand, Neanderthal, subhuman savages, but pushing for war against a nation that's far, 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 far more unified than ours is the geopolitical equivalent of picking a fists-only bar fight with an entire male rugby team. You're guaranteed to lose spectacularly every single time.